In the heart of England, where rolling green hills met ancient forests, stood Pemberley Manor. It was a house grand enough for a king, with tall windows that looked out over sweeping gardens and rooms filled with treasures from long ago. This was the cherished home of Lady Eleanor, a young woman whose spirit sparkled brighter than any jewel. While other ladies her age dreamed of glittering balls and handsome suitors, Eleanor's heart belonged to a different world, the one found between the covers of a book. Her days were often spent in the manor's vast library, a room that smelled of old paper and quiet adventure. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, dusting the countless books with a soft golden glow. Eleanor, with her intelligent eyes and a gentle smile, would sit for hours, lost in tales of brave knights, clever queens, and faraway lands. She knew more about ancient history and faraway stars than she did about the latest gossip circulating among the ladies of society. It was a time of kings and queens, a time when proper manners were as important as a grand family name. Ladies were expected to be skilled in dancing, playing music, and embroidery. Eleanor, of course, could do all these things, but her true joy came from unraveling a complex story or understanding a difficult poem. Her governess often sighed, wishing Eleanor would show more interest in finding a suitable husband, but Eleanor simply shrugged, her nose already buried in another thrilling adventure. She was not shy, nor was she unkind. Eleanor simply found the small talk of social gatherings rather dull compared to the exciting worlds she could visit in her books. While her friends practiced their curtsies and dreamed of ball gowns, Eleanor secretly wished for a real-life mystery to solve, a grand puzzle to untangle, much like the heroes and heroines in her favourite novels. Little did she know, a mystery was indeed waiting just around the corner, soon to arrive with a certain proud gentleman. Across the rolling hills and beyond the familiar country lanes, whispers began to spread. They spoke of Lord Ashworth, a gentleman whose name stirred curiosity and excitement in every drawing-room. He had been away for many years, travelling to places most people only read about in books, exotic lands with scorching deserts and bustling markets. Now he was back, and his return was the talk of the season. Lord Ashworth was undeniably handsome, with dark hair that fell just so and eyes that seemed to hold stories of every place he had seen. But more than his good looks, it was his manner that made him stand out. He walked with a certain pride, a quiet confidence that some found charming and others found a little too grand. He carried himself like a man who knew his own worth, and perhaps a bit more. He had returned with a purpose, to find a wife. This was no surprise. A man of his standing was expected to marry and carry on his family name. Many young ladies of good family hoped to catch his eye. They imagined grand adventures by his side, or at the very least, a life of comfort and importance. Yet, beneath his polished manners and sharp wit, Lord Ashworth held secrets. His journeys had changed him, not just by adding lines of experience to his face, but by etching mysteries into his very soul. He spoke little of his time abroad, offering only hints and fleeting smiles when pressed for details. There were hushed rumours of fortunes made and lost, of dangerous encounters, and of promises whispered under foreign moons. These secrets made him all the more fascinating. He was a puzzle, a riddle wrapped in fine cloth, and he knew it. He watched the eager young women with a knowing glance, searching for something he couldn't quite name. He wasn't looking for just any wife. He was looking for a partner who could understand the depths he rarely showed, someone who wouldn't shrink from the shadows that sometimes crossed his path. He sought a lady who could see past his pride, and perhaps even beyond his carefully guarded secrets, and in a world of polite smiles and carefully chosen words, such a woman seemed very hard to find indeed. The air in the grand ballroom of Sir Reginald's estate buzzed with music, laughter, and the rustle of silk gowns. Candles flickered in crystal chandeliers, casting a warm glow on the dancing couples. It was the social event of the season, and even Eleanor, with her love for quiet corners, found herself drawn into the festive spirit. She was observing the scene, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips, when her eyes met his across the crowded room. Lord Ashworth stood near the refreshments, a glass in hand, observing the party with an almost regal air. He was exactly as the whispers described, tall, dark, and undeniably handsome. But it was the proud tilt of his head and the distant look in his eyes that caught Eleanor's attention. She sensed a keen mind behind that polished facade, much like her own. Their formal introduction came later, after a particularly lively set of country dances. "Lady Eleanor, may I present Lord Ashworth?" a mutual acquaintance announced. Eleanor offered a polite curtsy, and Lord Ashworth gave a slight bow. "It is a pleasure to meet you, Lady Eleanor," he said, his voice smooth and deep. Yet, his gaze seemed to assess her, as if she were a puzzle he was already trying to solve. "And you, Lord Ashworth," Eleanor replied, her tone equally measured. She felt a spark, not of attraction, but of challenge. She could tell he was used to being the smartest person in the room, and she had a feeling he might have met his match. Their conversation began innocently enough, discussing the merits of the evening's music, but it quickly turned into a playful battle of wits. Eleanor, drawing on her vast knowledge from books, made a clever comment about the origins of a particular dance. Lord Ashworth, with his worldly experience, countered with an observation about how different cultures performed similar movements. Each tried to outdo the other, their words sharp but hidden behind polite smiles. Eleanor found his confidence bordering on arrogance, and she suspected he found her quiet intelligence a little too bold for a young lady. He seemed to think he knew everything, and she, in turn, thought he needed to be shown that there were depths he hadn't yet explored. By the end of their brief exchange, a distinct coolness settled between them. They bowed and curtsied, each secretly thinking the other was rather insufferable, yet undeniably intriguing. The dance floor seemed to swirl around them, unaware of the quiet duel that had just taken place. Days after the ball, the memory of her witty sparring with Lord Ashworth still lingered in Eleanor's mind. She found herself thinking about his confident smile and the challenge in his eyes, even as she returned to her beloved books. She tried to dismiss him as simply another proud gentleman, but a small part of her admitted he was rather more interesting than most. One afternoon, Eleanor found herself at a garden party, hosted by a rather talkative duchess. Seeking a moment of peace from the chattering crowd, she wandered towards a secluded rose garden. The sweet scent of blooms filled the air, and the gentle buzz of bees was a welcome sound after the clamour of the main gathering. As she rounded a large bush, she heard voices. It was Lord Ashworth, speaking in low tones with an older gentleman, Sir Charles. "The matter of the old silver remains unsolved, Sir Charles," Lord Ashworth was saying, his voice losing its usual smooth tone and carrying a hint of worry. "The clues are few, and the family is desperate for answers." Sir Charles sighed. "A true shame, my boy, to vanish without a trace, all those years ago. It has cast a long shadow over the Ashworth name." Eleanor froze, hidden by the roses. Her ears perked up. A mystery? And one involving Lord Ashworth's family? This was far more interesting than any ball or idle gossip. She remembered her secret wish for a real-life puzzle, and it seemed fate had delivered. "I've searched every corner of the estate," Lord Ashworth continued, his voice tight. "But the old tales speak of a hidden message, a final piece of the puzzle that was never found." "A hidden message?" Sir Charles mused. "Perhaps it's just an old wives' tale, my lord." "Perhaps," Lord Ashworth replied, a note of doubt in his voice. "But I cannot rest until I know the truth. There's more to this than just missing silver, Sir Charles. I feel it in my bones." Eleanor's heart quickened. Missing silver, hidden message, family secret. These words were like music to her ears. This was not a dry historical account from a book. This was a living, breathing enigma right before her. Her earlier annoyance with Lord Ashworth melted away, replaced by an overwhelming wave of curiosity. She wanted to know everything. She wanted to help. The proud gentleman suddenly seemed less a rival in wit and more a key to unlocking a thrilling adventure. Her mind, usually occupied with literary heroes, was now filled with the exciting prospect of becoming a detective herself. The game, it seemed, was afoot. The very next day, Eleanor's library, usually a place for quiet reading, became her detective's headquarters. The words "missing silver" and "hidden message" echoed in her mind, igniting a spark she hadn't felt since finishing her last thrilling novel. This was no make-believe adventure. This was real, and the stakes were high for Lord Ashworth's family. Eleanor knew she couldn't simply ask Lord Ashworth about the mystery. He was proud, and she had no official reason to be involved. So she began her investigation subtly, using her quick mind and a love for puzzles. She started by recalling every detail she'd ever heard about the Ashworth family, sifting through local gossip and historical anecdotes like clues in a treasure hunt. Her first stop was her own extensive collection of local history books and old county records. She spent hours poring over dusty tomes, looking for any mention of the Ashworth estate, its former owners, or any strange events that might have occurred generations ago. The pages smelled faintly of time and forgotten stories, a scent Eleanor adored. One afternoon, while leafing through a book on the region's prominent families, she found a small, almost hidden footnote. It mentioned a particular Ashworth ancestor, a Lady Beatrice, who was known for her eccentric love of riddles and secret codes. Eleanor's heart beat a little faster. Could this be the key to the hidden message Lord Ashworth spoke of? Next, Eleanor remembered a collection of old letters belonging to her own great-aunt, who had been a close friend of the Ashworth family many years ago. These letters, tied with faded ribbons, were tucked away in an old cedar chest in the attic. Climbing the creaky stairs, Eleanor carefully opened the chest, a cloud of dust rising to meet her. Among the personal notes and old invitations, she found several letters from Lady Beatrice Ashworth herself. They were written in a flowing, elegant hand, full of witty observations, and sometimes puzzling phrases that seemed to be more than just polite greetings. One letter, dated nearly 100 years ago, spoke of the moon's shadow on the sun's gaze, and the whispered secret of the silver gleam. Eleanor copied down these odd phrases, her mind buzzing with possibilities. Lady Beatrice's love for riddles, the mention of silver, and the mysterious wording, it all fit. This wasn't just old family drama, it was a grand, elaborate puzzle laid out across generations. Eleanor felt a surge of excitement. She was on the right path, and her books, her silent companions, were proving to be her most valuable allies. She had found her real-life mystery, and she was determined to solve it. Lord Ashworth, meanwhile, found, himself strangely unsettled. The image of Lady Eleanor, with her intelligent gaze and quick responses at the ball, kept returning to his thoughts. He had dismissed her initially as merely another clever young lady, but there was something more. Her eyes held a depth he hadn't expected, a knowing light that suggested she saw more than what was on the surface. He encountered her again a few days later, quite by chance, at the village bookshop. Eleanor was engrossed in a discussion with the proprietor about a rare edition of ancient poetry. She spoke with such passion and understanding that Lord Ashworth paused, hidden behind a tall stack of books, simply to listen. He had never met a lady who spoke of literature with such genuine fire. He had expected her to be discussing fashion or the latest scandal, but instead, she was debating the hidden meanings in old verses. When she finally looked up and noticed him, a faint blush touched her cheeks, but her composure remained. "Lord Ashworth," she acknowledged with a polite nod. "Lady Eleanor," he returned, stepping forward. "I did not realize you held such an interest in classical works." There was a new tone in his voice, one of genuine curiosity rather than challenge. Eleanor smiled. My interests are varied, my lord. Books, as you may imagine, are a particular passion. He found himself wanting to extend the conversation, to delve deeper into her thoughts. Indeed, I confess, I find myself rather intrigued by your insights. He saw a flash of surprise in her eyes, as if she didn't expect such a compliment from him. He then found himself asking, almost without thinking, perhaps you would care to join me for a turn about the gardens at Pemberley sometime? I find myself in need of intelligent conversation. Eleanor, usually so reserved, hesitated for only a moment. The chance to observe him, to perhaps glean more information about the mystery, was too tempting to resist. I would be pleased, my lord, she replied, her curiosity piqued. Lord Ashworth felt a strange lightness as he left the bookshop. He had initially sought a wife based on suitability and lineage, but Eleanor presented a different kind of appeal. Her sharp mind, which had initially grated against his own pride, now shone like a beacon. He realized he was not merely seeking a companion, but a kindred spirit. He wanted to understand what made her clever mind tick, and perhaps share a glimpse of the complexities that lay within his own. His proud facade was beginning to crack, allowing a new, softer appreciation for Lady Eleanor to emerge. The invitation to Pemberley Manor was not for a simple stroll. Eleanor, emboldened by her own discoveries, decided it was time to share what she knew. During their walk through the manicured gardens, as Lord Ashworth spoke of his family's long-standing puzzle, Eleanor carefully introduced the topic of Lady Beatrice and her love for riddles. Lord Ashworth stopped, his eyes widening. Lady Beatrice, my great-great-aunt. I had heard tales, but never thought them significant. He listened intently as Eleanor described the phrases she had found in her great-aunt's letters, matching them to his own vague family lore about a hidden message. It seems, my lord, Eleanor concluded, that we share a common interest in this old mystery, and perhaps a common ancestor who delighted in making things complicated. A slow smile spread across Lord Ashworth's face, a genuine smile that softened his proud features. Lady Eleanor, it appears I have greatly underestimated your abilities. This is indeed promising. And so their partnership began. What started as Eleanor's secret investigation quickly became a joint venture. They spent their days not at balls or tea parties, but delving into the past. Their first shared adventure took them to the dusty, forgotten parts of Pemberley Manor. Lord Ashworth, now with a new perspective, guided Eleanor through old attics filled with forgotten trunks and cellars that smelled of damp earth and age. They carefully searched through ancient documents, faded tapestries, and disused furniture, hoping for a hidden compartment or a cryptic drawing. Their quest also led them beyond the manor walls. They visited old churches, their graveyards telling tales of generations past. They spoke with the oldest residents of the village, their memories a treasure trove of local legends and family histories. Eleanor, with her gentle manner, could coax stories from even the shyest villager, while Lord Ashworth, using his authority and charm, opened doors that might otherwise have remained shut. One afternoon, they found themselves in the ruins of an old hunting lodge on the edge of the Ashworth estate, a place long abandoned. The air was still and quiet, save for the rustle of leaves. Lord Ashworth pointed to a half-fallen stone wall. My grandfather always said there was a secret here, but he never found it. Eleanor, her mind alight with possibilities, examined the stones. Her eyes, trained by years of reading detailed descriptions, noticed a subtle difference in the mortar of one particular stone. It was a faint detail, one that many would overlook, but to Eleanor, it was a whisper from the past. Their combined efforts were beginning to bear fruit, each bringing their unique strengths to the exciting challenge before them. As days turned into weeks, their shared quest to unravel the Ashworth mystery began to weave a new pattern in their lives. The initial rivalry and polite distance between Eleanor and Lord Ashworth slowly faded, replaced by a growing ease and understanding. Hours spent poring over ancient maps in dusty attics, or deciphering cryptic symbols etched into old stone, brought them closer than any ballroom dance ever could. They discovered a comfortable rhythm working together. Eleanor's keen eye for detail and her vast knowledge of history and literature often provided the missing piece to a puzzle. Lord Ashworth, with his logical mind and experience navigating the complexities of the world, could connect those pieces in unexpected ways. They learned to trust each other's instincts, even when they seemed to contradict their own. Laughter, at first rare and hesitant, became a frequent companion. A wrong turn down a forgotten path, a particularly obscure clue, or a surprising discovery would often end in shared amusement. Lord Ashworth found himself chuckling at Eleanor's dry wit, a side of her he hadn't imagined. Eleanor, in turn, saw past his proud facade to a man who could be genuinely charming and, surprisingly, quite patient when faced with a stubborn riddle. They also shared their worries. The weight of the mystery, the hope of clearing a family name, and the fear of failure were burdens they now carried together. Lord Ashworth began to speak of his travels, not as boastful tales, but as experiences that had shaped his views, sometimes with a vulnerability he rarely showed. Eleanor, feeling safe in his company, shared her own quiet hopes and fears, her dreams of a life that was more than just polite society. A special feeling began to blossom between them, subtle as a whispered secret, yet undeniable. It wasn't the fiery passion of a novel, but a deep, quiet respect that was slowly growing into something more profound. They found comfort in each other's presence, a silent understanding that transcended words. The mystery was no longer just about missing silver. It had become a journey of discovery for their hearts as well. They were learning, not just about the Ashworth past, but about each other, piece by precious piece. Their diligent search finally led them back to the old hunting lodge, the place where Eleanor had first noticed the peculiar mortar in the stone wall. Armed with Lady Beatrice's cryptic phrases and a newfound understanding of her love for puzzles, they returned with a sense of purpose. The moon's shadow on the sun's gaze had, with Eleanor's clever deduction, pointed to a specific time of day when the sun's angle created a unique shadow pattern on a particular part of the lodge. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, casting long shadows, one stone on the wall seemed to glow faintly, just as Lady Beatrice's riddle suggested. Lord Ashworth, with a strength born of excitement, carefully pried the stone loose. Behind it, nestled in a small, dry hollow, was a tarnished silver box. It was not the missing silver of the family heirloom, but something far more significant. Inside, they found a stack of old letters, tied with a faded blue ribbon, and a small, beautifully crafted locket. The letters, written by Lady Beatrice herself, told a heartbreaking tale. The missing silver was not a treasure stolen, but a collection of precious items sold in secret by Lady Beatrice to help a neighbouring family, the Davies, who had fallen on hard times due to a dishonest business partner. The Davies family had been wrongly accused of theft and faced ruin. Lady Beatrice, unable to publicly reveal the truth without shaming her own family for associating with a disgraced one, had chosen a clever, if complicated way to ensure the truth would eventually come out. The locket contained a miniature portrait of a young woman, Lady Davies, who had been Lady Beatrice's dearest friend. The letters explained that the proceeds from the silver had saved the Davies family from utter disgrace, allowing them to rebuild their lives far away. The biggest secret, however, was about the mistake made long ago. The dishonest business partner was not a stranger, but a distant relative of the Ashworths, who had cleverly hidden his misdeeds. Lady Beatrice had been the only one to uncover his treachery, but felt she couldn't expose a family member without bringing shame to the Ashworth name. Instead, she had left clues for future generations to discover, hoping that one day the truth would right the wrong. This revelation changed everything. The Ashworth family's honor, long shadowed by the mystery of the missing silver, was not only cleared, but their ancestors' act of quiet kindness and bravery was finally revealed. It meant that the Davies family, wherever they were now, could finally have their name cleared. It was a secret that could mend old wounds and bring justice, changing the very foundation of Lord Ashworth's family history. The weight of the past, so heavy for Lord Ashworth, suddenly felt lighter, even as a new challenge emerged: how to share this powerful truth. Uncovering the truth was only the first step. Revealing it proved to be a far greater challenge. Lord Ashworth knew that exposing the century-old deceit, especially one involving a family member, would cause a scandal. It risked tarnishing the Ashworth name in a different way, even as it cleared old injustices. Some family members, proud and set in their ways, might resist the truth, preferring to keep the old story of missing silver rather than face the uncomfortable reality of a past wrongdoing. The first test came when Lord Ashworth called a family meeting. He stood before his stern aunts and sceptical uncles, the letters from Lady Beatrice clutched in his hand. He explained the truth about the missing silver and the dishonest relative, his voice clear and firm. Eleanor stood quietly by his side, a silent but powerful support, her presence a testament to the undeniable evidence she had helped uncover. However, not everyone was willing to listen. Lord Grimsby, a distant cousin, with a reputation for stubbornness, scoffed. "Old wives' tales and faded letters. This is an insult to our family's honor, Ashworth. You seek to invent scandal where there is none." Eleanor, usually reserved in company, stepped forward. "With respect, Lord Grimsby, the evidence is compelling. Lady Beatrice's meticulous records and the detailed account of the Davies family's ruin, which we have since corroborated with old parish records, paint a very clear picture." Her voice, though soft, carried an unwavering conviction. Lord Grimsby turned his cold gaze on her. "And what does a young lady know of such serious matters?" A flash of anger, quickly controlled, crossed Lord Ashworth's face. He stepped closer to Eleanor, a protective gesture that didn't go unnoticed. "Lady Eleanor's intellect and diligence are precisely why we have uncovered this truth, cousin. Her involvement is proof of the depth of this investigation." The challenge was not just external. Doubts gnawed at Lord Ashworth. What if he was wrong? What if this truth brought more pain than healing? He turned to Eleanor one evening, his usual confidence wavering. "What if I damage our family further, Eleanor? This burden feels immense." Eleanor met his gaze, her hand gently touching his arm. "You are seeking justice, my lord. That is never a mistake. It takes great courage to face difficult truths, especially about one's own past. We will face it together." Her words, full of strength and quiet belief, steadied him. It was in these moments of shared vulnerability and mutual support that their new feelings for each other solidified, proving their bond was stronger than any challenge. With Eleanor's steadfast support and the undeniable proof of Lady Beatrice's letters, Lord Ashworth slowly but surely convinced his family of the truth. It was not an easy task. Old prejudices and stubborn pride were hard to break. But Eleanor's clear explanations, backed by her careful research, combined with Lord Ashworth's firm resolve, eventually swayed even the most resistant relatives. They saw the justice in it, and the honor in righting a wrong that had festered for generations. The next step was to find the descendants of the Davies family. This proved to be another intricate puzzle. But with the help of parish records and old land deeds, Eleanor and Lord Ashworth traced the Davies lineage to a small, respectable family now living in a distant county. Lord Ashworth, accompanied by Eleanor, travelled to meet them. It was a meeting filled with a mixture of surprise, disbelief, and finally, profound relief. The current head of the Davies family, a kind, elderly gentleman, listened with tears in his eyes as Lord Ashworth explained the century-old injustice, presenting the letters from Lady Beatrice as proof. He spoke of his ancestors' quiet struggle and the shadow of shame that had lingered, though faintly, through the years. To right the wrong, Lord Ashworth made sure that the Davies family received fair compensation for their losses, not just money, but a formal apology from the Ashworth family, acknowledging the past injustice. The Davies family, who had always maintained their innocence, felt a great weight lifted from their shoulders. The truth had finally set them free. The solution to the mystery brought more than just fairness, it brought happiness. The Ashworth family, now understanding the true bravery and kindness of Lady Beatrice, felt a renewed sense of pride. The cloud of the missing silver was gone, replaced by the inspiring story of an ancestor who chose compassion over convenience. For Eleanor and Lord Ashworth, solving the mystery was a triumph. They had worked as one, their strengths blending perfectly to achieve a common goal. They had faced challenges, overcome doubts, and ultimately brought peace to two families. As they journeyed back to Pemberley, a quiet contentment settled between them. The silver was not just found, but justice was served and hearts were mended. The long journey back to Pemberley, with the satisfying feeling of a mystery solved and wrongs righted, was filled with a quiet joy. As the carriage rolled through the familiar countryside, Lord Ashworth found himself looking at Eleanor with new eyes. He had admired her intellect from their first meeting, but now his feelings ran far deeper. It wasn't just her sharp mind that captivated him, though her ability to unravel Lady Beatrice's complex clues had been nothing short of brilliant. It was her kindness, shown in her determination to bring justice to the long-suffering Davies family. It was her bravery, evident when she spoke up against his skeptical relatives, her voice calm but firm. He saw her unwavering spirit, her deep sense of fairness, and the gentle strength that lay beneath her quiet demeanor. He realized he didn't just respect her, he loved her. This wasn't the kind of love he had imagined, based on social expectations or polite arrangement. It was a love forged in shared challenges, in late nights deciphering old texts, in moments of frustration and triumph. It was a love that had grown from seeing her true heart, not just her pretty face or clever mind. One evening, as the sun set painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Lord Ashworth sought Eleanor in the manor's gardens, her favourite place for reflection. He found her by a rose bush, a book forgotten in her lap, gazing out at the fading light. He approached her, his heart beating a little faster than usual. "Eleanor," he began, his voice softer than she had ever heard it. She turned, her eyes questioning. He took her hands in his gaze earnest. "You have not only helped me uncover a truth, but you have helped me see truth within myself. I came back seeking a wife, but I found so much more. I found a partner, a confidant, and a woman whose courage and kindness shine brighter than any star." He knelt before her, a gesture that spoke volumes of his sincerity. "Lady Eleanor, I ask you to be my wife, not simply because you are the cleverest woman I know, nor because you have brought honor back to my family, but because you are the kindest, bravest, and most truly wonderful woman I have ever had the privilege to know. Will you marry me?" Eleanor's eyes, usually so composed, welled with happy tears. This was not a proposal born of duty or convenience, but of genuine affection and deep admiration. It was everything she had secretly hoped for, a true partnership of minds and hearts. A gasp escaped Eleanor's lips, quickly followed by a joyous, shimmering tear. The scent of the roses around them seemed to intensify, and the last rays of the setting sun painted the garden in a magical glow. For a moment she was speechless, her heart swelling with an emotion she had only ever read about in her beloved novels. This was real, and it was more wonderful than any story. She looked at Lord Ashworth, still kneeling before her, his earnest gaze fixed on her face. She saw not the proud, somewhat distant gentleman she had first met, but the man who had shared his worries, laughed at her clever remarks, and relied on her intellect. He understood her in a way no one else ever had, valuing her mind as much as, if not more than, her beauty. He respected her, truly respected her, and that was a treasure beyond measure. All her life, Eleanor had longed for a partner who saw her for who she truly was. A woman who loved books, puzzles, and justice, not just balls and fashion. And here he was, asking her to join him in a life where her intelligence was celebrated and her spirit cherished. A radiant smile spread across her face. "Yes, my lord," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. 1,000 times, yes. Lord Ashworth rose, a look of pure relief and happiness washing over his features. He gently pulled her into his arms, and Eleanor rested her head against his chest, listening to the strong, steady beat of his heart. It felt like coming home, a feeling she hadn't known she was missing until this very moment. "Eleanor," he murmured, his voice laced with tenderness, "you have made me the happiest of men." She pulled back slightly, her eyes shining. "And you, my lord, have given me the greatest adventure of my life, and now the promise of a lifetime of them." She knew their life together would be filled with more than just quiet evenings and domestic bliss. It would be a partnership of minds, a shared journey of discovery, and a love built on mutual respect and understanding. She had found her true partner, not just a husband, but a kindred spirit who saw her completely and loved her for it. The future, once a blank page, now seemed to unfold like a thrilling new chapter waiting to be written. The news of Lady Eleanor's engagement to Lord Ashworth spread like wildfire through the county, bringing with it a wave of joyous excitement. After the recent revelations and the successful resolution of the Ashworth family mystery, the community was eager for a celebration. Their wedding was to be the social event of the year, a symbol of new beginnings and mended histories. Pemberley Manor buzzed with preparations. Silk ribbons, fresh flowers, and the sweet scent of baking filled the air. Eleanor, usually found with her nose in a book, surprised everyone with her thoughtful contributions to the wedding plans. She chose simple, elegant decorations that reflected her love for nature and quiet beauty, while Lord Ashworth, with his characteristic attention to detail, ensured every guest would be comfortable and well cared for. On the day of the wedding, the sun shone brightly, as if nature itself approved of the union. Guests arrived from near and far, filling the manor and its sprawling gardens with a kaleidoscope of colourful gowns and smart uniforms. Eleanor's family, beaming with pride, welcomed Lord Ashworth's relatives, even those who had initially been sceptical of the mystery's findings. The air was thick with happy chatter and the tinkling of champagne glasses. Eleanor walked down the aisle of the beautifully decorated church, her gown a vision of delicate lace and soft ivory. Her heart swelled with happiness as she saw Lord Ashworth waiting for her, his eyes filled with a love that mirrored her own. He was no longer the proud, distant gentleman, but a man whose heart was open and true. The ceremony was heartfelt and moving. The vows they exchanged were not just words, but promises born of shared adventure, mutual respect, and a deep understanding. Everyone present could feel the special bond between them. After the ceremony, a grand reception was held at Pemberley Manor. The ballroom, once the scene of their initial witty skirmish, now hosted a joyful celebration of their love. Music played, feet danced, and toasts were raised to the happy couple. The families, once divided by old secrets and misunderstandings, now mingled freely, united by the happy occasion. Lord Grimsby, who had once been so resistant, even offered a grudging but sincere toast to Eleanor's cleverness. It was a day where happiness reigned supreme, a true coming together of friends and family, all celebrating the beautiful union of two remarkable souls. Their wedding day was just the beginning of a life that was even more fulfilling than Eleanor or Lord Ashworth had dared to imagine. They settled into married life at Pemberley, transforming it into a home that truly reflected their shared passions. The Grand Library, once Eleanor's solitary refuge, became a lively hub where they would spend hours together, discussing books, historical facts, and new ideas. Lord Ashworth, now with a partner who truly understood his intellectual curiosity, found new joy in learning alongside her. Their adventures didn't stop with the solving of the Ashworth mystery. Life with Eleanor meant that every day held the promise of discovery. They continued to explore old estates, not just for clues, but for the sheer delight of uncovering forgotten histories and beautiful landscapes. They travelled, not just to exotic lands, but to quiet corners of England, always seeking out hidden stories and interesting people. Lord Ashworth, who once held his secrets close, now found pleasure in sharing every new experience with his clever wife. Eleanor, for her part, thrived in a partnership where her intelligence was not only accepted but celebrated. She found that Lord Ashworth encouraged her pursuits, even helping her establish a small, well-stocked reading room for the village, ensuring that others could also experience the joy of books. Their home became a place of lively conversation, where guests were often surprised by the depth of Lady Ashworth's knowledge and wit. They had children, bright-eyed and curious, who inherited their mother's love for books and their father's adventurous spirit. Pemberley Manor echoed with their laughter, and their parents taught them to question, to explore, and to always seek the truth, just as they had done. Their love grew with each passing year, a steady, comforting flame that warmed their lives. It was a love built on respect, shared interests, and the quiet understanding that comes from facing challenges together. They had found not just a husband and wife, but true companions in life's grand journey. And so, Lady Eleanor and Lord Ashworth lived happily ever after, their days filled with the endless delights of love, the wisdom found in books, and the excitement of new adventures always just around the corner.